Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility for, my crimes or my charges. I want to say sorry to my family, my mom. My mom got 11 kids. I can't say all their names, managers, my kids that's not here. Really everybody that got something to do with this situation, I want to say sorry for just having so much time invested into this,
Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more real courtroom breakdowns and shocking verdicts. Because what happened inside this Atlanta courtroom wasn't just another legal dispute. It was a collision between judicial power, attorney ethics, and celebrity justice, all unfolding in real time before a stunned nation. It began with a name everyone in hip-hop knows, Young Thug, real name Jeffery Williams. But in Fulton County, Georgia, prosecutors said this case wasn't about music. They accused him of being the leader of a criminal street gang called YSL, short for Young Slime Life, claiming it was responsible for crimes ranging from drug trafficking to armed violence. The initials matched his record label, Young Stoner Life Records, blurring the line between art and accusation. On May 9, 2022, the first RICO indictment dropped. By August 8th, the state filed a re-indictment with even heavier charges: racketeering, gang activity, firearms, and narcotics. To prosecutors, this was about dismantling organised crime. To fans, it looked like a war on rap culture itself. By the time the trial reached 2024, it had already become one of the longest and most expensive criminal trials in Georgia history. Hundreds of motions, endless witnesses, and presiding over it all was Judge Ural D. Glanville, Chief Judge of Fulton County Superior Court. Everything changed on Friday, June 7th, when one of the prosecution's key witnesses took the stand and refused to testify. Even after being granted immunity, he invoked his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Judge Glanville immediately held the witness in contempt and ordered him jailed over the weekend, until Monday, when the court would revisit whether he would cooperate. That single decision set off a chain of events no one saw coming. On Monday morning, June 10th, before the defense team even arrived in court, Judge Glanville met privately in his chambers with prosecutor Adriani Love, the witness, and the witness's attorney. A court reporter was present, but none of the defense lawyers were notified. By the end of that meeting, the jailed witness had a sudden change of heart. He agreed to testify. What seemed like a simple procedural moment would soon explode into a constitutional crisis. When court resumed, defense attorney Brian Steele, representing Young Thug, stood up and raised the issue. He had learned that a private meeting had taken place. He didn't say how, but according to him, that meeting violated his client's constitutional right to be present at every critical stage of the trial. He cited both the Sixth Amendment and the Georgia Constitution. If a sworn witness was being pressured or persuaded behind closed doors, he argued, the defense had to be there. No exceptions. Judge Glanville interrupted, clearly agitated. He asked Steele a single question: "How did you find out about this meeting?" Steele refused to answer. The judge pressed again, warning that unless he identified his source, he could be held in contempt. Steele stood firm, invoking his ethical duty under Georgia Rule of Professional Conduct 1.6, a rule that requires lawyers to keep all client-related information confidential, no matter the source. Disclosing how he learned of the meeting, he said, would violate that duty. The courtroom fell silent as the two men went back and forth. The judge insisted he wasn't asking for confidential material, only for the channel through which Steele obtained the information. But Steele refused again. The judge ordered a 5-minute recess. When the court returned, the tension reached its breaking point. Judge Glanville asked one last time. Steele's answer didn't change. Then came the words that shocked everyone in the room. "Mr. Steele, you are in contempt of court." Deputies approached. The packed courtroom watched as one of Georgia's most prominent defense attorneys was taken into custody in the middle of a nationally televised trial. But even then, Steele stayed calm. He told the judge he respected the court, but could not ethically reveal his source. Glanville sentenced him to 20 days in jail, to be served on weekends, so the trial could continue during the week. Steele made one unusual request. He asked to serve his time in the same facility as Young Thug so they could keep working on the defense together. The story, however, didn't end there. Within days, Steele's team appealed the decision to the Georgia Supreme Court, filing an emergency motion. The High Court agreed to pause the sentence while it reviewed the case, and soon after, it reversed the contempt order entirely. The justices ruled that Judge Glanville should have recused himself from hearing a contempt issue that arose from his own chambers meeting. In other words, he was too involved to rule on it fairly. Steele never spent a single day behind bars. But the fallout didn't stop. On July 15, 2024, Fulton County Judge Rachel Krause formally removed Judge Glanville from the YSL case. His replacement, Judge Paige Reese Whitaker, took over the proceedings going forward. It was a stunning turn. A sitting chief judge removed from one of the biggest criminal cases in the state after a confrontation that started with a single unanswered question. Then, just a few months later came the case's final twist. On October 31, 2024, Young Thug entered a sweeping plea deal. He pleaded guilty to 1 gang charge, 3 drug charges and 2 firearm charges, and entered no contest pleas to another gang charge and to racketeering conspiracy. The sentence, 40 years, with most of it suspended. His initial 5-year prison term was credited as time served, followed by 15 years of probation. If he violates any terms of that probation, he could face up to 20 additional years in prison. To prosecutors, it was accountability. To supporters, it marked the end of a legal storm that blurred the line between culture and crime. Stepping back, the lesson here runs far deeper than any single case. Ex parte meetings, private communications between a judge and one side, are almost always forbidden because they risk creating the appearance of bias. Even if nothing improper happens, they erode trust. On the other hand, judges have to protect the sanctity of their chambers and ensure proceedings aren't disrupted. In this courtroom, those two principles collided, judicial authority versus defense ethics, and the result was a confrontation that echoed across Georgia's legal system. For Brian Steele, it became a symbol of standing firm on principle, even under threat of arrest. For Judge Glanville, it was about protecting the integrity of his courtroom. Both believed they were defending justice, but together, they revealed how fragile that balance really is. In the end, the Young Thug trial will be remembered not only for its verdicts, but for what it exposed about power, pressure, and perception inside the courtroom. A reminder that justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. Because when the system wavers, even for a moment, the entire nation takes notice. If you learned something new from this breakdown, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and share it with someone who follows true crime and courtroom stories. Because the next time a judge orders an attorney's arrest in open court, you'll want to understand exactly how and why it can backfire.